I think right now, one of the biggest things that's going on in the news is the NSA wiretapping and eavesdropping stuff. Have you heard anything about this?
Ooh, I think I have. Like, the government's taking your internet data?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yes, I do know about that.
Okay, so tell me what you know about it.
What I know about it is that people are that the government is taking your internet data
Mm-hmm.
and knows what you're doing on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically always watching you, and it's causing a lot of anger.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about it?
I think why are you doing this? Why do you want to know what people are doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to know what these random people are doing? You don't even know.
Right.
Why don't you ask someone that you know that you're suspecting what they're doing, or just do it to one people, not everyone?
Right.
Like there's people that are getting really angry about it because they aren't doing anything.
They're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, they're not
Right.
doing anything wrong. They're just casually browsing websites and doing whatever.
Right. And the government's watching what they're doing, you think?
Yeah. I hope websites aren't bad.
And so why do you think the government's doing it?
I think they're doing it because crimes can start on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
there's hacking, and there's one thing that America is expecting China to hack into their system.
Oh, right.
So that's one reason why they're probably doing it.
They're watching for that to happen.
Yep.
That's true. No, you're right. And I think also a lot of times even crimes, so when the crime doesn't happen on the internet, sometimes the criminals talk about what they're going to do on the internet. So they may say, hey, let's go meet at such and such place and we'll rob this bank. And they plan it on the internet. So if they see that
Which
they're...
is not a good idea.
That's right. They may not be the smartest criminals in the world. So if they're planning to do something bad on the internet, then the government may see that they did that. Right. But so you would say you don't like that they're looking at everybody's data.
Yes.
That if they think somebody may be doing something wrong, then they maybe can look at what that person's doing,
yes,
or who that person's talking to. But looking at everybody's data is wrong.
Yeah, I think that the government should be alerted when something's happening. Like, someone will report that something's beginning to happen. Like, they see something, and then they go to that person, and then they start looking at that person and see if they can stop them.
Right.
So, like, notifications type stuff, like people saying,
Like an alert of some kind.
Yeah, an alert of some kind that something was looked up, like a website with that has something that has to do, like a chat room, like someone entering a chat room called criminal something. Like a chat room.
A chat room for criminals to talk
Yeah.
about. You're right. No, so this is interesting because this is so. Would you be okay then if, let's say, the government had a deal with Google, for example, right? And the government told Google, okay, anytime somebody searches for how to rob a bank, we want to know that person searched for how to rob a bank so that we can look and see if they're really thinking about robbing a bank.
Or it's just a theory fail.
Right, or if they're just doing some research for a book that they're writing, or if they're just curious how people rob banks, or...
Yeah, so they can stop it.
Yeah, would that be okay? For you, just what do you think? If anytime you were on Google and you searched about a crime, or something that could be construed as a crime, if the government got access to those records, what do you think?
I believe that there should be specific things, like there should be specific websites that are created that seem to be created by anonymous people that look like they're for criminals, but they're only for watching a criminal.
This is very clever. Again, very clever. So there are these things. They're called honeypots.
Oh, honeypots! I know what the honeypots are.
Okay, what are honeypots?
Honeypots are website type things that watch when hacks happen.
Yeah, that's right. So they're kind of what you're describing, right? So you take a server and you put it out on the internet and you make it like easy to hack, maybe.
Yeah, it looks
on
like
purpose.
It looks anonymous.
It looks anonymous, or even it looks like one of the things that we used to do when I was doing information security is even for the company. we would put one of our servers out and make it look like we messed up on the security, right?
Yeah.
And so people would hack into that box, but we could then watch what they did, and we could see how they hacked into it and what they did once they hacked into it, and it would help us secure other areas. So you think maybe the government could use honeypots
Yeah.
and attract criminals to come to the honeypots and like a chat room about how to do something, or terrorists. Most of what they're trying to do is terrorist activity, right?
Yeah.
So they could set up like a website to talk about how to do terrorism.
Yeah,
And-
like a web.
And then when people logged into that website, since it was the government's website, obviously it'd be like your Minecraft server. You can see what anybody does on your Minecraft server. So if the government had their own server, then it would be okay if they watched what happened on that server.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you could like pull a prank, like when someone's looking over your shoulder, you can look up something that's crazy.
Right.
That
No,
has to do with the person behind you.
That's interesting. So there's, I'll tell you. So there's this idea called entrapment. Have you ever heard of that? Do you know what that means?
No.
So what that means,
That's a hard word to
it
say.
is. It's a big word and it's kind of complicated. But what it sort of means is that if the government, let's say, or the police department or whoever, like, I'm trying to think of a good case, like.
Wouldn't it look weird?
So, like, people who hire a hitman, let's say, that it's illegal to hire a hitman, right? To hire somebody to go try and kill somebody else, right? That's against the law. So sometimes if a policeman acts like he's a hitman and comes up to you and says, hey, I really want to work for you and I'll take care of this problem you've got. All you got to do is give me $50 and I'll make this problem go away or whatever. And it's something that you would never do. Right, you don't want to commit a crime, and you weren't thinking about it committing a crime, but the government came up and enticed you, like tricked you almost into committing a crime, and then they arrest you for committing a crime. So that's kind of illegal too, right? Because
The problem goes away because you're in jail.
Right, that's true too.
So that's true.
Right.
They need
So
to fix it.
I wonder if, like, setting up the honeypots, and if you had a website that talked about how to make a bomb, so you could do like the Boston bombings that happened when Daddy was in Boston, right?
Yeah.
If you try to make a website about that to teach them how to do that, and someone comes there and finds that and then tries to do something like that, they would probably argue that you enticed them to do it, that you tricked them into doing it. Although I personally, I think that's silly, because either you're willing to do bad things or you're not. She do.
No, Monica, she do.
Is what?
Kind of has
Oh,
to
she
do
ruined my life because she knew I was sniffing glue. Yeah. All right.
Because she was part of the government.
Oh, she was right. She was, so maybe you're right. Maybe that was entrapment in the mnemonic. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I was just curious if you had heard about the NSA stuff and what you thought about it. So one of the things that they would argue too is that it's good that they capture all of this data about what everybody's doing on the internet, right? But they don't look at it. They just capture it and they keep it and they store it in a big server somewhere. And then later, if they find out that you have been doing something suspicious, they have a reason to think that you may be doing something, they can go back and look at the data that they captured before. What do you think about that?
That would be okay if you don't, as long as you don't stalk random people on the internet, because that's not fun.
Yeah, we don't want the government becoming internet stalkers, certainly. Okay. No, that makes sense. Okay, so you don't like them looking at everybody's data randomly. They need to have a reason to look at somebody's data. If they want to catch people doing bad things on the internet, maybe they create some honeypots and lure people to their websites, and they can watch whatever they do because they own the websites. And then it might be okay to capture everybody's data as long as you don't look at it unless you have a good reason to go look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just need a good reason to look at it, and you need to make sure that you're not looking at some random people's data of them watching this random YouTube channel.
Right. Hopefully, the government's not watching people watching your daily blog. Yeah. And so the way it works.
That's the way of government watching.
Yeah, the way it
YouTube.
works is you've got like different branches of government, right? We've talked about balances of power and stuff like that, right? So you've got the executive branch or the police branch who says, we want to go see what this guy's doing on the internet, and they have to go to a judge who's in the judicial branch, right? And say, is it okay, will you give us permission to go look and see what that guy's doing on the internet, right? So kind of what you're saying, they have to have a reason, and they have to convince the judge that there's some reason that they should go look and see what the person's doing. So there's some checks and balances in there, although in this case, they were able to kind of go look at everything, it looks like, or capture everything. And
As long as they have a reason to look at something.
Yeah. So they sort of made this argument about there's there's the data. So phone calls we'll talk about, because one of the things that they're doing is not just internet, but it's also phone calls, right? So let's say there's the data of the phone call is what you said when you were on the phone. Like if me and you were talking on the phone and the government listened to what we said to each other, that would be listening in on our phone call, right?
Yeah, that would be eavesdropping.
That would be eavesdropping, right? But the government is arguing that the fact that I called you, that like my phone called your phone, and they were connected for 5 minutes, so we had a 5-minute conversation, and maybe even like the GPS information from our phones, so where I was when I called you and where you were when I called you, that all
Stalking.
of that, it is kind of stalking. They call all of that metadata. So that's just data about the phone call that we had. Like the data is the actual conversation we had, and all that other stuff is just kind of metadata. So they're kind of arguing that they can capture that and look at that as long as they don't actually look at what we said on the phone. If they want to see that I called you and that we talked for a certain amount of time and that we were in certain places while we did that, they think that that's not the same as eavesdropping. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not the same as eavesdropping if you know where they are and how much time. Because, like, for say, someone was on Skype. You could look at someone. You would look at someone's profile and it would say, last call, 7 hours ago, location, house.
Oh, okay.
Like, that would be okay on
But you don't know who
Skype.
they called.
Yeah, but still. And then in their text, dude, you would say last time, it would also say last call to blank. So
you feel you're less upset if the government is looking at who you called and when you called them, as long as they're not actually listening in.
yeah, so that's not eavesdropping. That's just seeing who you were talking to. Who you were talking to, like, that would be someone question, and you were like, and you walked up to someone and after their call and you said who you were talking to. That's not creepy.
It's a little creepy. If you do it to everybody, it's a little creepy.
Yeah, and then if you do it to everybody.
Yeah, so we're still talking about the government just doing that to everybody.
Yeah, that's kind of odd to do it to everybody, but like if someone was in China and talking to this group of people in a suspicious place,
Right.
then that would be good. Then you could look up these people.
Yeah, okay, so basically what it sounds like is you're pretty consistently saying that if the government has a good reason
Yes.
to look and see what you're doing on the internet or who you're talking to on the phone, they can go to one of those judges like we just talked about and get permission to listen in. But they shouldn't just do it to anybody and randomly stalk people on the internet, or
Yes.
certainly not do it to everyone, right? Is that pretty much the way you feel about it?
Yeah, so let's just do this in a way.
Okay.
So there's this specific place that you think is suspicious, and then there's this town. There's a lot of bad people that there's graffiti everywhere and all crazy stuff that that isn't good.
Right.
And if they're calling from this specific state and to this area that's not a very good town, then you have permission to eavesdrop. But if there's someone in Colorado and then there's someone in Tennessee, that's probably not a good idea to do.
Right. There's no reason to suspect people in Colorado talking to people in Tennessee
Yeah.
of doing something bad. Right. But like you said, if there's some, hacker factory in China and they're calling people, in someplace bad.
Specific place named.
Right.
We'll just call the specific place
Randomville. So they're calling somebody in Randomville, which is known to have a lot of computer hacking activity as well. Then you might want to look in and see what's going on there. Okay.
But if there's just like we're calling a fan or something. We're calling some fans on Skype. That would be okay because we're calling someone from California and then someone from New York and someone from Dallas.
Well, yeah. So let's say that one of your internet YouTube fans happens to live in Randomville, and you don't know they live in Randomville, you don't know anything, but you call them in Randomville. Would it be okay if the government listened to that because they think maybe you're doing something bad?
Yeah,
because you're talking to somebody who lives in Randomville who's known to do a lot of crime.
So you can.
You think it's okay if they listen then, just in case?
Yeah, they can listen, and I believe that there should be a thing where you can only listen on one person's side at a time. So you can look in at the bad person's side, and you could look at the questions, and then you could look at my responses to see if there's something going on here or there's something not going on here.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, I think that's a pretty well reasoned
Yep.
position, Presley. I don't disagree with you on most of those points.
Yes.
I'm glad you've heard about it and you thought
Yeah.
about it a little bit.
I've heard about it, I've thought about it, and I know it. And I know what's going on.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, that's Presley's perspective. Number one, the NSA wiretapping or